hustle. Every day, all day. This is how. This is 97.9, the BOX.
This is fun because it's Women Crush Wednesday.
Hey.
And I'm so excited to talk to you, DJ Megan Ryte. How you doing?
What's up, Keisha? How are you?
You look good.
Thank you. You know, I feel like I need a haircut, but it just at a certain point, it just does what it does. It just keeps,
I think that's why it looks so good. It just does what it does. You just go about your day. How you been?
I'm good. I'm excited. I finally dropped my debut album, and you know, it's just been as soon as it came out, I was like,
yeah,
it's out. It's out.
Yeah,
I did it. It's out. You know.
And you're self-titled, Megan. I always wonder, how do you do it all? Because you still DJ, you still on the radio, and then you are in the studio working on this album. Like, where did you find time, especially us going through this pandemic, to work on something like this? This is big.
You know, there's something about us women and our multitasking abilities. You know, it's like, we want to do this, we're going to try to get it done. We want to do this. I went back to school too. So like, I'm in school.
Shut up.
Yeah, I got a final tomorrow. So it's like, it all sounded good at the beginning. And then I'm like, this is too much. I'm doing
oh
too
my
much.
God.
But I love it and I enjoy it. And, you know, the album is something that I've been, you know, working on. I saw some like articles that I had, you know, people did write-ups on me and they're like, it's, you know, she was working on it for 3 years. It wasn't really that I was working on the music for 3 years. It was just how long it takes to actually get something like this out, especially through the ups and downs and labels. And then we're in a pandemic, because I tried to put it out before the pandemic. But then, you know, you get caught up with that. And so it was a long journey. But, you know, what's kind of interesting too is I kind of got a love and knew that, like, you know, this is something I wanted to do, because when I was in Houston, I was doing a lot of like freestyles and stuff. So I would get with, you know, me and Zero did some shout outs to Mike D, you know, Slim Thug. We would just, you know, GT Garza and stuff. I would, you know, put out, you know, different freestyles to like songs and stuff that came out. And I was like, you know, I want to turn that into doing like a full out album, you know. So a few years later, it worked out.
You know, it's crazy when I think about, and I won't say you came from radio because you've always been a DJ, Megan, but when I think about people that worked in radio, I think of the Khaled, or I think of like Ludacris, who was in radio and then went on to be a mega star.
People forget that Ludacris was in radio. Lala was in radio too, I believe.
Lala was in radio too. She was in radio. Yeah. And so we don't see so many women make the transition and be recognized for it as well, and do good quality work, put out a whole album. The production is great. Everything is great, you know? So you're amongst the greats, Megan.
I appreciate that, you know, and sometimes I get a little, you know how we get it. It's like, you get it out and you're just like, I want people to just finally make the connection and finally see it. And I'm like, it'll happen. I feel like as long as I'm being, you know, true to myself. And, you know, I've learned a lot from a lot of people. Like I've said this in a few interviews. Like, I know Khaled wasn't the first, you know, DJ to do this by any means, right? Like, but he, you know, turned it into superstar status, you know? And I say, like, I don't know how he's done this 11 times. Like, I don't know how, like, it is a very difficult thing to do. And I think when you put out, you know, compilation, you know, projects, people don't realize, like, if you're like an artist and you have like 1 or 2 features, that's one thing. But when every song is like a feature, and then I'm also doing it independently, it's just, it was quite the feat.
Then you got legends on there like Bun B and Wyclef, and then you also have Remy Ma and Young Jas. It's like, what?
Yeah, I was putting in, you know, I worked. It's crazy because Bun ended up doing an interlude, you know, for the project. I really wanted him to be on it, but by the time, you know, I reached out to him, I had to turn it around too quickly, you know. But Bun has always been, you know, there for me, and, you know, has always given me advice, anything that I need, you know. I super appreciate, you know, all of his support as well.
It's been a long journey, Megan. Where are you from?
I'm from Virginia originally, but I forget that sometimes because I've moved around. Like, it's like, I know, I was like, I'm from Virginia, but then people recognize me too. They'll be like, oh yeah, Megan, she's from Houston. And I'm like, oh, yeah. You know, because I was in Houston Yeah, before I was in New York, and Houston has always
Mm-hmm.
hold a, a dear place in my heart. So
Mm-hmm. Did you always envision though this was like something you did want to do, even when you like first started out DJing, or has
I
it been like progressively? It's like, you know what, I can do this.
to be honest, I did not think like when I first started, I didn't imagine the world and the rooms that DJing would get me into. I can't
Mm,
say that. It's like you go into something and you want to do it right, but you think just kind of like what you know, but you can't even. It's like I couldn't envision like when I first started. I've been DJing since I was like 16 years old, so
mm-hmm.
I would have never like envisioned like, okay, you're going to be able to do all these things. And the reason that you're able to do all these things is because at the heart of it is DJing. So,
Mm-hmm.
I always, tell people anytime anybody hits me up or they're like, can I have some advice or whatever, it's just try to stay true to who you are and what you do, but also try to learn so many things around because you never know where you might
Mm-hmm.
end up.
Mm-hmm. Megan, I see you and I see, okay, this shining star, but it wasn't always like this. You've been through a lot of struggles. Can you talk about some of the struggles you went through
Oh
to get to this
God.
point?
I don't, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, people they look at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't look at what it took to get there. And I have, again, like, it's like when anytime anybody, hits me up and I try to like have conversations, it's like, for some reason, they can't visualize that. They just see you now. So they see me, they think, okay, I'm living in New York City and I'm on Hot 97 and I've got this album and I have all these amazing artists on this project and I'm putting it out and I'm getting support, whatever. You see that, but you don't
Mm-hmm.
realize like how many years, like I've literally been doing this for like 15 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when you start doing something for that long, it's like, all right, well, how long did it take until I started even being like financially decent? It was like 10 years, like 10, 11.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
even before I got to Houston, like I had spent time, being homeless. Lost, I was at working here, then that didn't work out. I'm like, trying to do this. And it's always like the perception or what people see
Mm-hmm.
is always one thing, but what happens behind closed doors is another thing. Because something about being in the
Mm-hmm.
music industry, it almost seems like you have to look like you've already made it. Because if you
Yeah.
don't look like you've already made it, then nobody wants to either take you seriously or support you. So I remember I would be like DJing in clubs. I would have like my name like on the radio. They'd be like, all right, well, Megan, or back then I was B Ryte, she's gonna be at this
Mm-hmm.
spot tonight. And then I would leave that spot and I would be sleeping in a cash only motel, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody would see that or know that, or I couldn't tell people that because then it's like, who's gonna book me
Right.
for their spot? This girl, like they're not, and of course
Mm-hmm.
now, I feel like with social media and people being able to live in their, authenticity, it can get a little bit, better on some sides and then worse on the other, but you couldn't do that back then, so
Yeah.
I can say it's been quite the time,
The journey.
know,
Yeah.
it's been quite the journey, but
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't.
I see you sometimes take these little breaks from social media. I'll be looking for I'm like, where's Megan at?
I do. Because I get affected, and this is the truth. I get like affected by the scroll. Like I don't think we're supposed to um intake so much information at one time, especially there's a lot going on in the world, there's a lot going on, in society, you have the pandemic, you've got like Black people being murdered by the police, you know what I'm saying? We
Mm-hmm.
seeing this
Mm-hmm.
nonstop, and then we work
Yeah.
in radio, so on top of that,
Yeah.
we also have to do our job. So you mean to tell me I've got to get up, I got to focus on everything that I'm doing, which is, my life, my health, my mental and physical health, my
Mm-hmm.
job, my family, my friends, stuff like that. And then I've got to report on all of this on every day on one
Every day.
platform. And then I got to sit on social media and look at it all day.
And read
And
through
then
it.
it's just like, sometimes it just gets like too much. And it's like, I
Mm-hmm.
almost feel like we live so much on that instead of, living whatever it is in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I take
Mm-hmm.
a second, I'm like, I can't do this right now. And then, I pop back on because I need to. And then I take another second because it's just,
And it's crazy though, because you being a DJ and a personality, oh, we need content. You gotta put out content every 5 seconds. I
what
gotta
I
have
say.
content.
I say no. I say I can't, like, no, because you get caught up in that, and it's like, and I get it, but for me, it's like at this point, it's like no, because I couldn't. It's like you got to choose. Like at some point, it just becomes too much. And I was, obviously, I live in New York City, so at the beginning of the pandemic, when nobody knew what was happening, the city is shut down. Right? We don't know what's going on. We're being told you don't know if you can breathe the air or not breathe the air. This is the point where they're like, masks not going to do anything, but then also don't breathe the air, don't touch anything, and wipe off anything that you buy with alcohol. And then I'm doing reports and stuff saying that they're putting bodies in trucks and watching videos, and we're frightened you. And they're just like death. So I've got to do all of that, and then I got to see it, and then I still got to be. It's just. You don't have to pause on that content for me.
Yeah. Because I
Not
can't work.
You have to choose, and I feel like I had to make that decision, for myself, to be like, I'm still a person, like I'm still a human being, and I think not everything is for everybody, and that's something that's just not for me. I'm sure I could have, way more followers for this if I do this. But just like I just try to
struggle with that.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely struggle with that because I'm like, I want to be my authentic self. I am going to be my authentic self, but I don't want to document it every 5 seconds. You know what I mean?
I don't want to. I was like, I know some people, I know some people who love it. They don't get affected by it. They love to, also they love to argue with people. I have friends that love a Twitter argument. They love trolls, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Was there anything you learned about yourself during the pandemic that you probably hadn't said with yourself for a while, and then it just was like, oh, okay, well, because I feel like a lot of people learned a lot. Like I learned balance, you know what I mean? How to really live outside of work. Because I think sometimes I always became just, oh, it's all about work,
I learned that I think that there's a lot of things, again, there's always things that like I want to do. Like I'm that person. I'm the person that's like, I put something in my head and it's like, I want to do this. I want to do that.
Do it.
But it's more so becoming like, there are things that I want to do. And then I know why, before I never knew. It's like, I would get a feeling like I want to do this and I got to figure out. But now I'm like, all right, I know why I want to do this. And then why I don't want to do this. And
right.
That I don't want to do. Let's figure out how I can do the things that I want to do, and to me, the things that have meaning or purpose. And that's been something that I've been thinking about now, especially. Okay, like what do you want to do next? And it sucks. You're supposed to celebrate yourself, which I'm working on because I have a hard time doing that too. It's like right, and it's like, all right, now what's next?
What's next?
What am I like, at the same time, I kind of like to think about what's next. And so as I start to think about those things, I want to make sure like whatever is next for me is something that is aligned with what I really want to be doing versus something that I think that I'm supposed to be doing because it fits in with what I've already done, so that's kind of where I'm at with that. It's a lot of,
I was gonna say, I want to get back to the album though. What was your favorite song on the album, Megan? Your personal favorite. I know that's hard because it's your album.
That's such a hard question because it's like there are certain ones that like mean, like I guess you could say that mean different things to me for different reasons, right? Like like Fly has Cranium, Casanova, and Rich the Kid, and that's one of the earlier ones that I did. And then Casanova, who's in prison right now, like that song is very important, to me. And I'm happy that it came out, and if it can, help him, in any way, and then also make sure like his music is still being heard, I appreciate that. And there's another record that I have in my project called Money Counter with Young Ma and Skilly Bang, and they're going crazy in Jamaica for it right now. Like I was like singing in Jamaica over the weekend, so I'm like,
that's dope.
Like I love being able to put different worlds, together. People that you wouldn't expect, to hear, on the project. And then I have Then I have one, you know, the outro, it's called You Gotta Love Me with Conway the Machine and West Side Gun from Griselda. And that's like a different feel too. It's just like each one of them have like a different, like,
Yeah.
you know, like story behind them, you know, and the stories to me also are probably the reasons that like I love, you know, certain records, you know.
And I assume a lot of this is relationship based, right? Like you've been knowing a lot of these artists forever and have built with them for so long.
The whole project is relationship based. If I didn't have the support, you know, from these artists, this project would not happen. So I'm super, you know, thankful. And then not only like of them just like, you know, wanting to be a part, but then letting me put them on tracks with people they either didn't know or don't have relationships with or may not know about, you know, and just kind of like trusting the process, you know, like the Young Ma and Skilly Bang record that I have, like they didn't know each other. And it's not even normally a track that you would hear, you know, Young Ma on, but she kills it, you know? And so it's that type of, you know, situation that I'm just thankful that the artists were like super supportive, you know, about it. We're like, whatever you want to do, Meg, let's do it, you know? Or I have like through with Guapdad 4000 and Flip De Niro, which is another dope record. And they didn't know each other either. They're from two opposite coasts and they sound like they should be a duo. So it's like I, you know, without the artist support, there's no Megan Ryte album.
Yes. Well, it's out now. DJ Megan Ryte, self-titled.
Yes.
Congratulations. And I gotta ask you this.
Yes.
Who has better food, New York or Houston?
Houston. Can you send me some food? I need to come visit though. I'm gonna come visit.
You really do.
I'm gonna come visit, you know.
You really do need to come out here.
I need to come visit. Let me know when's a good time. Something's going on.
Every time's a good time to come to Houston. Yeah. You know, air time's a good time.
You're right. Yeah. No, you're right. Watch me this weekend. I'm on a plane.
I'm on my way to Houston. Girl, all they doing is day parties all day long for the night. That's it.
See, and we're still shut down here, so we've
been open the entire time.
Wow.
What? We have never been closed, I feel like. Yeah.
No, that's not a thing. Wow. So I don't even know. I would probably have anxiety. I'd be like,
there's people.
Yeah, there's people everywhere.
Right. Good. Don't be having a mask on either. Brandon, lead it out. Okay. Megan, thank you so much. I appreciate you always. Good talking to you.
Thanks.
And congratulations for sure.
Thank you. Stream my album.
Stream our album, y'all. Stream our album. Let's run these numbers up.